Yes, a very good afternoon and many thanks for joining us on NTV Uganda. My name is Romeo Busiku. The government of Uganda, through the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, started giving out a special grant to persons with disabilities who are well organized in groups in the financial year 2009 all the way to 2010. Well, the purpose of the grant was to support income-generating activities of PWDs to provide employment, improve the income status and enable them become partners in the development process of this country. From the financial year 2010 up to 2010-2011, up to date, 3 billion was earmarked for the grant for all districts in Uganda. Unlike the first year where 48 districts received the same amount of 30 million, in the years that followed, it kept on changing based on the number of sub-counties a particular district had. The grant remained 3 billion and the amount received per district kept on decreasing as the districts increased and population of PWDs actually increased as well. So what has been the impact of this grant on the target group, which are the PWDs? To assess its impact, I'm now joined by you do have the program manager, that is Mr. Martin Senoga from National Union of Persons with Disabilities of Uganda. We also do have Olive Namutebi. She is from Albinism Umbrella Uganda. She is the director. And we also do have Emily Ajambo, the acting commissioner, Disability and Elderly in the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Socio Development. A very good afternoon and many thanks for joining us. Martin Senoga, the Program Manager, National Union for Disabled Persons of Uganda. Please give us a situational analysis of the work you do at NUDIPU in advancing the rights of people with disability.
Thank you so much, Romeo, for having us here. And it's a privilege for us to share the work that we do to improve the life of persons with disabilities in Uganda. But before I go to it, I would briefly wish to highlight the situation that persons with disabilities live in Uganda. Many of the persons with disabilities in Uganda live below the poverty line. That is to say, many of them really subsist. This is because very few of them actually have access to gainful employment. Very few of them have means of livelihood that can support them and their families. So, and this stems from the main problem of stigma and discrimination. Stigma and discrimination for persons with disabilities begins right from the family, and it plays out at different levels of society. And this, in turn, affects the situation of persons with disabilities. Because of stigma and discrimination, very few access education. Because of stigma and discrimination, very few access employment. Because of stigma and discrimination, very few access services. And this explains majorly the situation that persons with disabilities live in Uganda.
Of course, even access to education, Martin Senoga, for our people who are grappling with special needs, the proliferation is only 5%. For those young learners who are in schools, regular schools, in the regular setting, only 5%. But then in the special schools, specifically for the people with special needs, only 10% penetration. Talk about that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that out. One of the reasons why very few children with disabilities access education has to do with stigma, but it also has to do with lack of awareness. Many parents actually have no clue that the children with disabilities they have can actually learn like other mainstream children. So because of fear, because many parents even fear to admit that they have children with disabilities, and that is one way that they would have got assistance. But because of keeping quiet and hiding from the mainstream that they have children who are special, that denies them the opportunity of even accessing available opportunities. So that partly explains the limited access to education. Because for sure there are opportunities for education, but if as a parent you are not aware where they exist, it means you may miss that opportunity of taking the child to school. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Martin Senoga. He is the program manager for the National Union of Disabled Persons in Uganda. Let's also bring in, that is Olive Namutebi, the director, Albinism Umbrella Uganda, to talk about the plight of PWDs on this same subject. Yes, Olive.
Thank you so much.
Your perspective on this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Romeo. I want to begin by saying disability is not homogeneous.
Indeed.
And that is one great aspect that perhaps as a ministry or as a nation, we need to appreciate. Now, people with albinism are unique in their own way.
Indeed.
And we thank God we've moved some miles, some positive steps. Back then, before the new bill that was passed, people with albinism were never recognized as anything. So how could you plan for people you don't even know, or they are not in any category? So yeah, we thank God through the different platforms, our ministry, the parliament, that bill was passed, that persons with albinism are now recognized under disability. So that means we need to say that there are some giants in the disability fraternity. People with albinism and other small categories are at the tail end. And whatever that Mr. Senoga said about the services, it is worse for such categories. Persons with albinism, for instance, even if they had a chance to go to school, some teachers, because of lack of awareness, and albinism has so many myths, it has so many misconceptions. We've had stories of a teacher coming to class and finding a child with albinism and walks out. Because in their tribe, when you meet someone like that, you go home and slaughter a cow. So she's like, put that thing out of class. Now, it's not about the parent, it's not about the child, but now this teacher is unable to even give a service to this person. Talk about the health facilities. Our skin is only different.
Indeed.
Just a skin color,
Indeed.
nothing else. And to me, this is always a surprise. People who have gone to medical school, or even if you've not really been confirmed a doctor, but there is enough biology for you to know.
Indeed.
I think by S4,
That's
you know,
a pigment
genetics.
issue.
It's a pigment issue. You go to a hospital, and the nurse is like, I can't touch you. Maybe I can't use an injection on you. Maybe, you know? And the nurses, I always give
In a
this
nutshell, we also need to retool the professionals. It seems like they've forgotten some of the things they learned in primary.
Interesting.
Please go ahead.
It's very, very true. So we encourage the medical practitioners, especially the midwives.
Indeed.
You're the first person to get contact to this mother giving birth to a child with albinism. Whatever you say at that moment speaks a lot to the mother, to the father. And yesterday was International Albinism Day.
Indeed.
And it is International Albinism Awareness. You know, it took the UN to recognize that we really need to create awareness for this category of disability, because it's a fact today. Tanzania has suffered greatly, and not that Uganda is exempt. We have the statistics, though small, our borders are porous. So we are still living under fear, among other challenges of people with disabilities.
I believe, Olive, we shouldn't guess that the people or members of the public do know these myths and misconceptions. Could we break them down for them? Because some of them could be expediting some of these activities, not knowing that they're actually segregating someone. So what are some of those misconceptions and
Some
myths?
of the misconceptions, some like really outrageous. I can begin with saying you're not fully human. And yeah, that is really bad. So they think you are some supernatural somebody, and they attribute certain powers to you. And some of our body parts are used. And, you know, the other myth that people with albinism do not die. They just disappear. It's so, I mean, it is a myth. Then, very, very sad, we've heard of a myth in this scourge, the period of HIV/AIDS, where people think that having canon knowledge of a person with albinism, you get cured of HIV/AIDS. Our young girls are suffering, are getting AIDS because of this myth or misconception. We all know, or we assume, that persons out there know the cause of HIV and AIDS. So it's very unbecoming for any average Ugandan to think this. There are many myths in different tribes, because there was a situation analysis that was carried out with support from the UN Human Rights to look at the situation of people with albinism in Uganda. We have around 52 dialects, local dialects. Each of them has their own attribution to albinism. You know, something in the north, they say if you have a child with albinism, you went to the well at 1 p.m., something happened. Another one, when you have this, that is an outcast. And then it's a mixture. I think in Buganda there is a saying or belief that when I shake your hands, you'll be blessed. Now, another side, you're a curse. So you live in this situation that you do not know exactly what people think about you. But as we celebrated yesterday with a very good theme, strength beyond all odds.
And indeed, we should continue to disseminate information, not just wait for 13th of June every year, but continue raising awareness on this plight. All right, that is Olive Namutebi. She is the director for the Albinism umbrella Uganda. You also have Martin Senoga, the program manager for NUDIPU. And we also have a representative from government, courtesy of the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Socio-Development. That is none other than Emilia Jambo, the Acting Commissioner, Disability and Elderly in the Gender Ministry. Very good afternoon once again, Emily. A lot has been said about the plight of PWDs, persons with disabilities. But then, in that respect, government in 2009, 2010 decided to award a special grant to alleviate some of these challenges. Please give us maybe an overview of how this special grant has been able to impact positively on these individuals. But first off, what is this special grant all about? What is this special grant for persons with disabilities?
Yes, thank you, Romeo. Good afternoon, viewers. I'm called Jambo Emily, as you've said. I work with the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. I will not distance myself from what my colleagues have said. Disability, first of all, is diverse, and we must appreciate the diversity that disability comes with.
Indeed.
And also the challenges affected by persons with disabilities are also diverse because of the diverse nature of the forms of disability. Just give me a minute to go back to the albinism. Yesterday was World Albinism Day. And as government, we're supposed to have been to Kabarole district to commemorate this day under the theme of supporting persons living with albinism. We customized the theme from Strength Against All Odds, which is the UN theme. But because of COVID, we are unable to go. So that's why we are holding scientific commemorations, mainly about advocacy and online discussions on how we can support persons with albinism. And as government, persons with albinism are among people with disabilities, as they are in Schedule 3 of the Persons with Disabilities Act. So they are fully embedded within our plans. But as we know, the Persons with Disabilities Act has just been amended in 2020. We have plans to understand how we can fully appreciate and support people living with albinism. I'll go back to the special grant. In the financial year of 2009-10, government introduced the special grant. And the purpose of the special grant was to support people with disabilities. You know, people with disabilities are among the marginalized groups, and they are special interest groups, as they are within the Constitution, so they are supposed to receive affirmative action. Why we did that was because there are many government programs running, but due to the vulnerability and the nature of persons with disabilities, quite often they are excluded from these programs. How many do we have in Uganda? For the what?
PWDs.
As per the census for the census of 2014, where the population is 12.5.
For those 2 and above.
Yes, 12.4% of the total population. So by that time, we had 4.8 million persons with disabilities. So, but the projections, I'm yet to get we can project up to now since 2014.
Around 6 million.
Around 6 million if we are to run the projections. But the population is 12.4% of our entire population of persons with disabilities.
I was reading somewhere and they were saying 12.4% for those 2 years and above, and then 14% for those 5 years and above.
That is possible because identification of disability for those 4 and below is quite difficult because of, first of all, the lack of knowledge of some of our health workers. They cannot easily identify the person with disability. And also some disabilities at a young age, some people outgrow them and then they cease being persons with disabilities. So there is higher rate of disability at a young age because also others after rehabilitation, they are able to outgrow the disability and then the population reduces. So if I'm to go to the special grant, the purpose of the special grant was to increase household incomes for households of persons with disabilities. As my colleague Mr. Senoga said, people with disabilities have less education, and because of the negative attitudes people have towards disabilities, most of them don't lack employment. So the best way government thought at that time, and even which is still our strategy this time, is to empower people with disabilities through income generating activities, through skills development. So what we are doing now, by that time they sent money to all the districts to start income generating activities. And it was targeting all people with disabilities who are organized in groups. They organize themselves in groups within the sub-county or parish, and then they are able to receive this
around
money.
30 people.
Around by that time, around 30 people. So this grant has been running since the financial year of 2010, but then in the financial year of 2019, we received additional funds at the ministry to scale up this. But the difference here was these grants were managed at the ministry and we're paying groups directly through their bank accounts. We didn't want middlemen. So the districts mobilize those groups, then they take them through what they're supposed to do, and they forward those groups to the ministry. And we directly pay those groups to their bank accounts. So by that time, we had a target of paying to about 400 groups, but because of COVID, we're unable, and we only paid 167 groups. Because the time for when we're about to start mobilizing the groups to bring, that's when the lockdowns came in and the districts were unable to send. Luckily enough, again, this financial year which we are ending, government enhanced this grant to 5 billion, and this time we're able to give funds to 818 groups. Our target was 800 groups, but we're able to give to 818 groups. Now, this grant targets people with disabilities as they are per the Schedule 3 of the Persons with Disabilities Act. I will not list them. But then the grant goes ahead to target caregivers, because, you know, there are people with disabilities who completely cannot perform any income generating activity, but they are being supported by a caregiver. So we go ahead and still support the caregivers, especially for children. Those for the parent support organizations, we give them. And then we go ahead and support homes that support children with disabilities with this grant to start income generating activities so they can generate income to support the children they are caring for. This grant this time, other than the one you knew, the old one, the one that is being done at the ministry is targeting between 5 to 15 members, because we understand the problem of mobility for for persons with disability. You'll excuse me, for disability and elderly, so I try to get...
Please go ahead, yes.
So we understand the challenges people with disabilities face in movement. We reduced it from village. If you can get between 5 to 15 members, even within the village, and you're all interested in doing the same activity, into implementing the same project, well and good, we'll support them. If at all you can't get those people within the village, and you can scale up the parish, and you can regularly meet and be able to implement your project, that's well and good, and up to sub-county. We are trying to make it as much flexible as possible. And for our application forms, you do not have to put constitution, you simply fill in the form. After filling in the form, the councillor for persons with disability at the sub-county, because they are the ones who know the beneficiaries, we are not there. They have to verify that indeed these are bona fide members of this community and they do have a disability. And then they endorse those forms. And also then they go up to the district until when the cow submits to the permanent secretary of the ministry. Then we go and do a verification exercise. Every group that is paid, starting this financial year, the financial year for 2019-20, we were unable to verify because of the lockdowns and people, the movements. But starting this financial year, we are doing a physical verification of every beneficiary. And every beneficiary, we need to have a NIN, a national identification number. And in case, because of disability, some people are unable to have NINs, at least we need to get a NIN of the caretaker. Because the ministry is developing a single registry where we want to have all beneficiaries of social protection programs identified. So that NIN is entered within the system, and we are unable to know that you benefited in this financial year and you're located in this place.
Indeed.
So the amount that we give for the grant is between 3 to 5 million, depending on the enterprise. Per beneficiary? Not per beneficiary, per group, depending on the...
So the group of 30 people will get some 3 to 4 million?
This time, as I said, our group is between 5 to 15.
Yes.
So you find, and most of our groups actually are between 5 and 6.
5 and 6. So those 5 to 6 individuals will get between 3 to 4 million?
To 5 million.
Okay.
Yes, depending on the project, but majority of them are opting for projects that can take up to 5 million. So we have smaller groups with more funding, and we have diversified. We don't want them to go into the normal carpentry work. We are encouraging them to diversify their enterprises. They look within their localities what is selling at that time, what is profitable. So we are flexible, because in the end, what we need, the target is to have increased household incomes for persons with disabilities.
Let's talk about some of the challenges, Emily. Corruption and misappropriation of funds. Yes, at the district level.
Now, as I said, this time round, for this new grant, we do not send money to the districts.
That is from 2019 up to
2019, yes. The grants we send are directly to the bank accounts of beneficiaries.
But we also do know that the 3 billion special grant is still running, and it's being taken to the district.
The 3 billion is still running and it's taken under the social sector development grant.
Indeed.
And they still receive that grant, but we are planning to streamline and harmonize, because we can't have 2 government grants running. We're trying to streamline and harmonize, and so we are conducting a review of the special grants for persons with disabilities, and we're going to harmonize and have clear roles. So we want to have clear roles. The ministry should be to disburse grants to the groups, and the districts, they will continue with the mobilization, capacity building, and monitoring, support, supervision of the groups to ensure that they are implementing what they are supposed to do. So of course you cannot rule out issues of corruption.
Indeed.
We have already identified some. For instance, not even within the government, not because I'm government and I'm supporting government, surprisingly, even persons with disabilities, you find one person, that's why we're insisting on the NIN, you find one beneficiary takes a photograph, because we demand for a photograph of the group members.
Yes.
So if we are 4 members or 5, all of us must take the photographs indicating our disabilities. So you find this time the person will take a photograph sitting and will claim has no limbs. Then the person goes to another group and takes.
So these are able-bodied people.
No. They are persons with disabilities, but they at times, those are few cases. At times you find some few, and then those clever ones mislead the other members of the group. And that is why now, from this financial year, we realize that, and we insisted on physical verification of every group.
You also have a reservation from the National Council for Disability. They say the National Steering Committee never sat to actually assess the impact of this special grant.
Yes, no. The steering committee sat.
At least until 2019, they didn't sit.
Until that is true. That is true. I think they did not sit. But for this new grant, we do have a quarterly steering committee meeting. We do have quarterly steering committee meeting, and the purpose of the National Steering Committee the meeting is to review the performance. Because they also do their own oversight. They're able to identify some of the few issues that are coming out, and they inform us, and we're able to rectify those. For instance, this one of photographs is actually members of NUDIPU, the Association for the Women, that was able to identify this, and they advised us. So this time we are more energized, having different approaches, and we are committed to ensuring that people with disabilities receive money. And also we are happy that government keeps enhancing this grant, because in the next financial year, the grant has been enhanced to 10 billion. So we target to at least give grants to over 1,800 groups across the country. Maybe I need to tell the nation that this grant is demand-driven. Because we want to give you money to start income generating, we cannot force you. It's demand-driven. We send out information that we do have these resources, and districts that bring, they're the ones we give.
All right.
But then the challenge is also there are some districts that do not submit. So those that do not submit, we keep sending them reminders, and even telling them that they are likely to be sanctioned if they do not send the funds. So my appeal would be people with disabilities should go to their CDOs, community development officers, to appeal and ensure that they are mobilized and benefit from this grant.
All right, Emily Ajambo is the Acting Commissioner, Disability and Elderly at the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. I also have Mr. Martin Sanoga. Yes, Martin Sanoga is a Program Manager at the National Union of Disabled Persons of Uganda. Let's talk about access to this special grant. There are challenges. You have limited knowledge or skills of proposal writing on the part of the beneficiaries.
Yeah.
There is no group cohesion. You have so many challenges like negative mindset of the handouts. You have poor selection of enterprises, meaning people access the money before coming up with an idea for a business. And they are not getting any skills in that regard. So you do not have business skills, but you have the money, meaning you're going to misuse the money. Let's talk about the challenges when it comes to access to the special grant.
Yeah, thank you so much, Romeo. The challenges have been many.
Let's
with,
break them down.
Access to special grant. The main, one of the
Because Emily is taking pointers and
yeah,
she's
one
really
of
serious
the-
about
one of-
helping PWDs.
one of the issues
Yes.
was to do with mindset. Most persons with disabilities initially, before the change to the new version that Emily was sharing, you would have a group of 30 people
Indeed.
who are sharing about 3 million shillings. When you would break that to what each individual member would get, it would be a very small amount. And many times, I remember a time like 5 years ago when we were, as NUDIPU, were trying to assess the impact. They were telling us, you know, the money is too little. So what we do, when we meet and we have got the money, we share it and each one goes with the little that they have got and they see what to do with it. So that in a way limited the impact of the special grant because in the sight of persons with disabilities, it looked as if it was money for them to eat. And it was, even the CDOs by then made it worse. As the groups that would follow up on this money, they would come to a point where say, let us give them the money to eat.
I see.
And in them they were like, have you heard? It is our money to eat.
Not even to start on the
because it wasn't a loan, it wasn't anything, and it was too little. So even when it came, it made little impact because in
so when they got the money, many of them did not engage in income generating
they didn't
activity.
actually
They
engage
simply
in
ate the
income.
money.
They would get those who drink would end up at a drinking joint,
I
and
see.
it actually could not have impact. And this was worsened by the problem of monitoring. There was limited monitoring.
No monitoring and evaluation system.
To follow up and see how those who have got money would have actually used the money. So, but I'm happy with the improvements that Emily was sharing. I see that they are now planning to do the monitoring.
The National Steering Committee.
The national, but also at district level and the sub-county level. It is very crucial that if the special grant is to bear fruit, there is need for following up those who have benefited to see whether the enterprise that they really wrote and they spearheaded for, that they really forwarded for funding is actually the one that they are spending money on. Because it was always just like a camouflage.
Let's talk about, go ahead.
The other thing was that in the old one, you would have the leaders forming a series of groups, even changing names. A group, Chidawarime, persons with disabilities, then the other one, Mukarakasa, PWD. But
leadership.
But actually when they are the same people. So I'm so happy that this time round, the new special grant is saying the name of the person, the beneficiary. That means that when...
Or a relative.
Yes, it means when it is fitted in, it will be clear. So, hey, this one has already benefited. So these improvements, I think, will now bring value. But the old one, it was really a mess.
Martin, there's also another issue, limited accessibility, both physical and information.
Exactly.
They can't go to these physical structures, and some of them cannot even access the information.
Yeah, the bit of the information was on the part of the selfishness of the leaders. Because they wanted particular people to benefit.
I see.
So they purposed to ensure they inform less people. So that the others would not access the information. But now, I think one of the improvements that should come with this version is that the grant should be publicized. So that persons with disabilities actually know that this is their grant. What you require is A, B, C, D. And as long as you have it, you qualify. Otherwise, in the past, it looked like a privilege of few. So these improvements will now make the special grant worth a while. Otherwise, the benefits, when we try to assess and see how have this grant really changed the lives of persons with disabilities, the rude shock was that it was very limited. The extent was limited. So I'm happy with these improvements. If they really follow them.
There's also another issue, Martin Senoga, limited marketing skills. It seems like before we give out this grant, I was reading some literature and the National Council for Disability was saying, before you give them money, please give them the skills. Give them the skills so that they can actually ensure that their businesses survive the onset of the first birthday.
That is very, very important because people were getting together just because they knew there was money.
I see.
And when they knew there was money, they would get anybody. But again, there was also a complication of finding 30 members in a certain locality. It is so hard to find 30 persons with disabilities in a location.
So the requirements were
I'm happy now that they are bringing the number down
to 5.
To 5 to 6. That is more realistic. Otherwise, you'd find that because it would be an artificial group, getting people who are within that locality, they are persons with disabilities. Some would come only for that purpose, taking the photo, getting registered, and then. So, but with these improvements, I think it will now make the special grant worth a while.
All right.
Yes.
Let's also bring in Olive Namtevi. She is the director, Albinism Umbrella Uganda. Let's talk about the access to this grant. Do you feel like more people have benefited from this special grant that was issued by the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, and whether the challenge is curtailing more people from actually joining, in your perspective?
Thank you, Mr. Buseko. I can almost say that previously people with albinism did not access this fund.
Previously?
And yes,
before 09?
Before 09. Really none. Or even the first 5 years.
After the grant was being given out?
Yes. One person.
So by 2015 you were not getting this money?
No. A few of our leaders, we as Albinism Umbrella work with different community-based organizations based in districts, the old districts. Why I say that, today if you went to Luwero, it will include Nakaseke and all that.
Indeed.
Because persons with albinism, we are few, you know. So I also appreciate the ministry for bringing down the numbers. But even to us, getting 6 or so in one district or one locality is also not common.
Indeed.
But we are closer. And the other challenge, I don't know, Emil, I hope we have exceptions to some of these. Just before I came on set, people with albinism really face family neglect. And many times I talk about the fathers, because you don't have any tag on you that you fathered so and so, you are free to walk away. And the few heroes that I really sing about, fathers who are there, just before I came, one mother was calling me, it's like, oh, that dad went. Yes, he's there.
Because the woman gave birth to a child?
No, the child is already there. But, you know, community reminds you of these scars, of this, you've been lied to. Maybe the man gets worn out and says, no, I think really this is a curse.
I see.
Now I'm looking at the situation of this man.
And it's really important. It's a callous development. Men are running away from their families.
Very, very bad. For people with albinism, it's kind of the norm. But now I was looking at access to these grants. People with albinism usually are hidden in the homes of generally disability. People don't want to know that we have a child with disability. Worse for persons with albinism. Now, few of us have national IDs. That's a fact. I'm looking at a guardian or a parent who can take advantage now that, if I have Olive, I can access money. Now I have an indefinitely she does not have. You see where I'm coming from?
Yes, we see that.
So
Olive, go ahead.
I hope we have an exception to some of these, that yes, the national IDs are really relevant. There is a great number of Ugandans actually who do not have national IDs for various reasons.
Indeed.
For various reasons. So we're saying for some, the information, yes, is getting there slowly though. We're tasked as an organization to really get down to whatever district to give our people this information. But many of us, the self-esteem is so low, leave alone the stigma and discrimination. Even for those who have gone to school, I mean, you stand up and just people looking at you, in your mind, you're like, already this is what they're thinking about me. Maybe I'm better off, you know, hiding. We tend to flourish in, let's say, a small setting. You know, Romeo is used to you, you're in the neighborhood. The minute I get out of that, I begin to freak out. I cow in and say, oh no. So now you are in two groups. Yes, as the Albinism umbrella, we really encourage our own groups not to discriminate.
Yes.
But yes, this is the only way we can really be
Because
free.
you would understand yourselves better.
Exactly. Of course, we bring in the parents and the caregivers. Many children with albinism are raised by grannies, aunties, the biological parents, including mothers to this shock. Some of them just walk away because of this person with albinism. So even as an organization, the poverty levels and the cries of medical bills, of, you know, someone has some little education, but because they cannot even maybe access a government office, and not necessarily they are not qualified, but because they have scanty information, you go to this office, they're like, what do you want? Who told you? Indeed, we also ask for those government officers to be
because
a
if they
little
ask
polite.
for a bribe, they don't want to get in trouble. If it is a senior boss who sent you, then don't play safe. That's why they ask. Who sent you?
We all know corruption is here.
So if you're from somewhere and you do not know any big wig in the government, they would have to ask for money for you to access this money.
That's
Go ahead, Olive.
That's true. I will not name the district, but we have some of them where the CDO is like, for you to even access a form, they need you to pay for it.
Olive, if you don't mention the district, Emily will not actually get up in arms to look for these individuals. What is the district?
She'll mention later.
I'll give it to her. I want to be safe.
Go ahead, Olive.
So we're saying we need information as low as possible.
Indeed.
I don't know if you could task the CDOs not to be selfish with this information. Why would I pay for a form?
Indeed.
A form to be filled. Filling it is hard enough. The education levels are really bad. But can you guide this person without asking for airtime, transport, lunch, you know? And this is a person you are saying they are so vulnerable, they are beginning a small income activity, and you want half the money. You
So
know?
the criterion used in accessing this special grant has made it hard for some people to actually get the money.
Right. Right.
All right.
Absolutely right.
Emily Jambo, please expand more. She has said too much. Please, individuals are making it hard for people with disabilities, people with albinism to access this special grant. The criterion being used to access the money is actually making it so hard, putting immense pressure on the PWDs. Physical access is hard. Information access is also hard. Bigger groups of maybe even though there are 5 to 6, even 15, if you have different ideas. I have a different idea. Emily, Olive has a different idea. Martin has a different idea, but we are in the same cluster. How will we come up with one enterprise that is going to develop into an income-generating activity? So such criterion, can it be changed from a national ID to maybe something else? Because like she mentions, half of this population do not have national IDs or are living with caretakers who might not necessarily be having a national ID. My grandmother, who is 80, she could not be having it. And she's my caretaker. So what do I do if I need a NIN to access this money? Criterion.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Olive and Romeo.
Indeed.
Now, I think you'll all agree that right now, national identifications are a must for...
You can't even access,
You can't access
2 shillings in a bank.
Yes, without
Without a
national
NIN.
identification. I'll give an example of our sister program, the SAGE program, which gives older persons money.
Yeah.
You know, they must also have IDs because it's the only identifier that you can get for someone. Remember, we are dispensing government resources, so we must be accountable. And the person receiving the money must be identifiable. We should be able to identify the person.
So that they don't receive
But that
the
can't
second
be an
time.
impediment for getting a service. Yeah, so what we are going to do for this program is, first of all, to look out for unique disabilities. Because we've realized there are some disabilities that are benefiting from the program. You find mainly the physical, those who are deaf, the deaf, the blind, those can easily meet, and there are many. So what we are doing the unit disabilities. The albinism group. There's one they call hard of hearing, a few.
Intellectual.
The intellectuals. We are trying to get uni disabilities and to understand what are the challenges. Since there are not many, we can be able to handle that on case-by-case basis. But issues of national IDs, we cannot run away from that. The best should be how do we encourage our people to have IDs? How can we support them? Leave alone encouraging, how can we support them? If there is a group here which has been identified and they are really eligible, verified, and they don't have the needs, how can we liaise them and link them to the district to ensure that the district office, nearer office, can be able to get needs for these people so they're able to benefit. Because right now, where we are moving, we can't do away with the needs. That is the fact that the nation has to
But then we have
with.
to do away with the corruption at the local level, because if it is poverty that the PWDs are grappling with, they might not have the 10,000 to give to the LC1 chairman for the stamp. They might not have the 10,000 to give to the diesel for that stamp, because they're asking for money. The last thing that they would need is a NIN number. For you to get a NIN number, you have to get an application. That application, you need a stamp from the LC1 chairperson. You need a stamp from the diesel. Now, that is 20,000 shillings for the LC1 chairman and also the diesel. They won't give it to you.
I don't know if they charge.
They charged me.
Maybe they charged you as Romeo. I've never been charged.
Last week, Friday.
That is a different
I'm looking
case.
for a national ID.
I've not been charged. One thing that I know is that they pay 50,000 for the national ID, but the rest, I've got national IDs for people, but I've not been charged. Those are exceptions. So let's not generalize, because those are few. I cannot deny, of course, but they are exceptions of people who are taking advantage. But at least I've not had any instances where people with disabilities have been requested to pay. Maybe they're there, but at least for this program, I've not received. But then if we organize them, like for instance, if you go to a district, you find that there may be 5 groups. It is easier for them to be supported without them being charged. Because if you're going alone, it is easier for someone to manipulate you. But if you're more, it cannot be easy. Then the other issue I wanted to talk about is that lack of information. We are developing a disability management information system.
Disability management information system.
And we'll be registering all beneficiaries who are receiving information. We'll be putting there all information, these forms, the guidelines. So it is easier for Olive to download this and even distribute within their own, without incurring the cost.
Number 1.
And then we shall all the information how to access. I know, of course, that is just a drop in an ocean, because many of them cannot access, don't have smartphones and so on. But at least let's try. You never know the kinds of Olivias and Senegals that can download and give other people without them having to come to office. Then also we are developing an app for this program. The app is going to be available on Google. People should be able to download and then understand and get information about what this program is about. So slowly but slowly we are going to improve, and we are hoping that there will be more information, because indeed this program is not much publicized. And we are planning to have more publicities like this so that people are able to understand what the program is about. Then the issue, you talked about the issue of this group not being able to perform this enterprise. You know, the purpose of the physical verification, we do also a technical assessment. If your people who maybe have mobility challenges, you don't have caregivers, and you may be planning to rear pigs, for example. They may not be, pigs will run away. Then you go and they say, all the pigs run away. Maybe even they may use that excuse and say, we brought us the pigs and they run away. So we do a technical assessment to see if the enterprise you're applying for, do you have the capacity to do it? Even if you don't have the capacity as yourself, who do you have caregivers who are committed, who are going to do this? All that is taken into account. And as per our guidelines, the specialists at the district are supposed to offer extension services to these people. Then issue of, we are planning to also develop frequently asked questions, flyers, small flyers. Actually, we've developed them so that they can be running around and people are able to understand. If we're asking, how do I get this grant? That should easily be explained. And that is going to be done by actually next month. Those will be running around and will be able to advertise this program more, since we've even got more funding and we're anticipating to get more funding for the grant. So generally, as we are saying, we are moving steadily, but also I'm going to encourage inclusion. As Oliver said, it's not easy to find 5 people with albinism, even in a sub-county. So does that mean you will not benefit from from the program? No. I'm sure there must be a group within a sub-county that should be willing to accommodate that person. And we are trying to, not discrimination, but we are trying to encourage inclusion. People to understand that you have the capacities to do the same.
At some point, Emily, do you think we might actually fathom the idea of having to target individuals with this special grant?
No, we'll not target individuals because we do not have the resources. We don't have the resources to target individuals. Even going down to 5 is really the minimum. You know, government has many priorities, many activities to do. So if we say that we're going to target individuals, that won't be possible. But for the targeting of individuals, like the one we do for older persons, we realize that there are people with disabilities who cannot participate completely in income generating activities. And even some of them do not even have caregivers who are willing to support them to participate in such programs. So as government, we are thinking of how we can have a twin track approach. We can have a SAGE-like program for those who cannot. But then those who can actively involve will continue with the special grant. But these are just plans, not yet actualized.
You also,
we are yet to.
Yes, you also have recommendations, Emily, to have this grant separated from the social sector development grant, to have it independent.
Yes, as I said, the old grant is still going to the districts, but
through
the social sector development grant. So as government, we are planning to merge to have one grant, and we have clear roles.
Indeed.
So that we know the roles of the ministry are this and the roles of the district are this. Yes.
All right, Martin Senoga, he is the program manager at the National Union of Disabled Persons in Uganda. And we are actually largely expounding more on some of the recommendations that could go a long way in helping this special grant have the desired impact on the persons with disabilities. Yes, Martin, what are some of those recommendations that could make this special grant impactful?
Yeah, I think from the time we started discussing, we kept on making recommendations, and I think one of the
mostly challenges.
One of the issues, of the issues hindering access, is to do with the lack of information about the special grant. So I've heard the recommendations she has given that are trying to deal with the issue of lack of information.
By creating the disability management information system.
Yeah, I saw all these and I saw that they are big. They are really big. They are for the elite. And we are dealing with people who have had less education. So in terms of recommendations,
to break it down,
I think we need to break it down a bit so that that person with disability in the village there is able to access the information, because how many of our persons with disabilities will have that access to internet to go and see these frequently asked questions? So we need to break down that information to levels that are easy for them to access, because it is very few of persons with disabilities who will even have access to the disability information management system of the ministry.
I agree, Senoga, because even during the pandemic, when we were touting continued learning through the internet, it was the same thing. We were saying that the use of technology is too expensive, especially for persons with disabilities, especially the assistive devices that they use. Yes. So meaning the DMIS might not go a long way in actually curtailing this problem.
It will not sort the problem of access to information.
But for those PWDs from well-to-do families.
Yes. So I think when we're talking about a typical person with disability, we will need to increase collaboration with organizations of persons with disabilities that really reach down. The AUs, the Albinism umbrella, the NUODU, the NUDIPU, the UNAPID, the ESAU, the MHU, the NUODUs, those organizations. If we increase collaboration with those organizations,
we need a door-to-door approach.
Yeah.
Go out there and look for them.
Yeah, we
door-to-door approach.
Exactly.
Knock and talk to them whether or not they have information on this special grant.
Yeah, because you see, persons with disabilities, if we are to talk in the bigger perspective of research, they are almost like a hidden population.
Indeed.
It is when you get one that will lead you to another, like that. It's like a network, snowballing.
And the system currently was, it's the PWD to come to the doctor, which is the government.
Exactly.
But then we need to expedite more recommendations to ensure that we go to them.
Exactly.
Because they face physical barriers.
Exactly.
I hear you.
So that needs to be softened in a way.
Emily is taking notes.
Yeah. Then the other issue has to do with the way the group is assessed. In the old system, we had a form which would be filled, and many of them would not actually be able to comprehend. Others had to even pay money. Someone says, I can write for you that application.
Wow.
But my cut is this.
Wow.
And because they really didn't know how much they would accept. So he said, even if you put the money on the account, the person will say, my share. So that is another area that we need to soften to improve access. Because someone would sit like one day, help them to fill the application, but carry almost half the money.
So we need to design a grant which suits the level of education of the beneficiaries.
Exactly. That makes it easier to access.
All right. Olive Namutevi, she is the director, Albinism Umbrella Uganda. Olive, let's go ahead. We're talking about resolutions, recommendations, if you will, that will go a long way in alleviating the challenges PWDs grapple with on a daily basis. Issues to do with access to this special grant and so forth. Please, acquaint us.
Thank you so much. I'll play the two sides of the coin.
But not the devil's advocate.
No, not devil's advocate. No, I will not.
We are on the offensive.
Yes. Going back to Emily, I mean, we have a government.
Indeed.
It has the whole 40-something million people. So definitely,
45.
It will not go down to a one olive somewhere in Wachiso, you know? So as Martina said, the collaboration, I wish there is a way this monitoring of the groups is enhanced. One, we may not have to get down to the level of education for maybe for everybody or every person with disability. Can we empower the, like you've said, the likes of, I mean, the ministry, I don't know if you have all that manpower, to get down to those groups. So what should a group have? How long should it be in existence? Do we even have any financial skills to even do the basic bookkeeping? What do you want to do? So can government delegate or the ministry to these other different people who can go, not even door to door, but to the parish, let's say, and say there is a seminar to do this, or we are training this group in ABCD. And also, when we're looking at, there are many things that we want to do. Looking at income, someone was recommending candles in some village in Sironko, and I'm like, but how are you sure candles, candle making, we know how easy it is. But what is the market of candles in Sironko? You know, can we look at how marketable those things are? I will again talk for my constituents of persons with albinism. We have some of them that we've really empowered, selling roadside kiosks, having all these, and they're like, we won't buy from so and so, because your skin, anything associated with you. One was employed as trying to serve food in a restaurant, and it's like, no, the food she touches, I won't eat. Now, this gets back to society, you know? Please give people a chance, you know? You not, I mean, we're all human beings. I don't think you are more human than us to, you know, to begin discriminating and say so and so cannot do this and this. So as we recommend one, inclusion, like Emily has said, we are in a global setting. No more of Uganda, whatever village you come from. You can never be independent of the next.
Indeed.
So let's have this approach of inclusion and acceptance. We all have differences, but how are we going to live with each other? Just like we're saying, disability is not homogeneous. We all have different challenges, but let's have this unified approach to looking at solutions. What the challenge is, it can be an opportunity. So can we turn these challenges into opportunities? That is a two-double coin.
Of course, you are focusing on the spatial grant, but I also want to talk about access to quality education on the part of the individuals grappling with special needs and so forth. People with albinism, should we be creating education centers that are really specialized in handling people with special needs, people with albinism? My
take is a big no. That yes, I accept.
We keep them in an inclusive setting.
Exactly.
All right.
Because one, yes, the people who need special schools, people, the blind with the visual impairment, maybe mental challenges. But for persons with albinism, I would really say a big no to having an exclusive school for persons. Why? We want you integrated in society. We want society to understand who you are, and then taking you away will be a disservice. You know, what we're asking for is reasonable
Everybody need
accommodation.
to learn to live with you in that inclusive setting.
All we are saying is reasonable accommodation. I went to school and I went to inclusive schools, but I would ask the teacher, can I sit in front? But even when I'm seated in front, at times I will not be able to see. And I thank God for my teachers. I would walk to the blackboard and say, what letter is this? Or excuse me, can you draw a bigger map? You know?
Indeed.
Because yes, some teachers have those, even if it's a tick, it's like really a dot.
Indeed.
They're like, don't be too mean.
Honest.
So yes,
Yes.
for education, we're saying reasonable accommodation. And albinism, I feel, is not very hard to manage. Really. Don't take me out in the sun.
Indeed.
Some schools, PE, you have to remove your uniform. I mean, those, I hope that is really dying away. But in some village schools, it still happens. So we are saying, can we just have reasonable accommodation? May teachers be more understanding for this. There is a school I went to and trying to, you know, tell parents, please approach the teachers and all this. Even the parents at times are not able to. So Albinism Umbrella has really gone to even one-on-one. The teacher was bold enough to say, we are in business.
Wow.
Yeah. I looked at her and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is your school. You've nailed it hard. But I hope, and I mean, this is gender, your mother ministry,
Indeed.
collaborating to the Ministry of Health, Education, those core services that, you know, why can somebody be so proud because they have a private school
Indeed.
and they want to run the way they want, regardless of who the
We need to
student
put them
is?
in check. Of course,
You know?
if you realize you're talking about the performance of this spatial grant, but then we've fused the conversation with education, simply because most of the beneficiaries do not have access to this spatial grant, maybe because of their literacy levels. So keeping children with special needs or persons with disabilities in school is also a big win in this situation.
True, true.
Do we have a special grant for PWDs in school?
No.
At the moment, we do not have.
All right.
Because ours is targeting those who are in the communities to start income generating activities. But what we are planning to do as the ministry, you know, we also offer vocational education for persons with disabilities in our schools. Those who finish in our schools, we organize them into groups, and this is one of the startup kits that we give them to start income generating activities. Those who have been doing maybe metal fabrications, they are able to start something for themselves once they are done with the education. So I'm going to, I don't know if I'm the one speaking now.
You are the one speaking, Emily, and we have a minute left. Go
Okay,
ahead.
a minute left. So I'm just going to wrap it out and up and say that what we need as Uganda.
Okay, the good thing you talked about quality education and what needs to be done. Now you can go back to the spatial grant.
Yes, to the special grant is that we need inclusion in all our social protection programs.
I hear you.
And also, as you know, the ministry or government works through structures. We give information to our structures down at the districts, and it's anticipated that that information should reach. But still, the reason why we have the different organizations for persons with disabilities at the National Steering Committee is to give information. For instance, NUDIPU, where Senoga works, Mr. Senoga works, they have what they call unions, district unions. So when he gets information, it is assumed that they will be able to pass that information to the district unions. And which unions? The grassroots.
So
because we are few,
effect.
there is a trickle-down effect.
Indeed.
Indeed, we cannot afford to go, no program can afford to go door to door. I don't think that is there.
Without the other stakeholders.
Yes, so we need a collaboration, a public-private partnership with the stakeholders, and we've been involving them a lot to ensure that they participate.
The biggest takeaway is the Disability Management Information System. Yes, it's going to be put up courtesy of the Gender Ministry to track all the persons with disabilities in Uganda. There are over 6 million, so we need to know where they are and what kind of income-generating activities they are engaged in, what challenges they're in, and also opportunities when it comes to tapping into the machinations of the Disability Management Information System. All you need is your phone, tablet, computer. We also do know they suffer from accessing technological technology in that regard. So government needs to do more to ensure that this access to information is actually availed at the local level. Door to door you stakeholders, NUDIPU, NUODU, and all the other stakeholders who are actually engaged in alleviating the challenges PWDs are grappling with. We need to work together with the Gender Ministry to disseminate information. It's the main pointer here. My name is Rami Busik. Of course, I was having this very, very pertinent conversation with Emilia Jambo, the Acting Commissioner Disability and Elderly at the Gender Ministry. She wasn't alone. Martin Senoga, he is the Program Manager at the National Union for Disabled Persons in Uganda. And lastly, Olive Namutebi.